Hey guys, welcome back to the SNR podcast. Sorry for the little bit of a break between some videos, but I want to jump back on here today and just talk about a few things that have been going on in the sports world, really specifically March Madness. And it's really been a wild one this year. And so we just wrapped up the last couple of days the women's and men's national championship, and just like a snapshot of how crazy the tournaments were this year. There wasn't a single one seed in either of those tournament championship. But I wanted to kind of start off with talking about something that's been pretty viral on social media over the last couple of days since the women's national championship between Iowa and LSU is wrapped up. And really, most of the talk about, since that game has wrapped up, has not been about the outcome of the game. I mean, LSU ends up winning pretty handily. But this game consisted of two really superstar players in the women's game right now. Caitlin Clark for Iowa, who is arguably the best women's player in the world right now, and she's not even a pro, right? And she's still got another year of college basketball ahead of her. She has a range like Steph Curry, but in the women's college game, which is just unheard of, and so has a chance to be a really, really, really special player for a long time. She is obviously, kind of exploded onto the scene this year and really become a household name with anybody that sees anything about basketball. You don't really even have to be a big women's college basketball fan to know who she is. But anyway, she goes on this incredible run, a couple of 40-point games in the Sweet 16, Elite Eight and Final Four, and then ends up in this national championship game against LSU and has another great game. Honestly, puts up another 30 points, but a couple of controversial things take place in the game. One of them being at a point when I was still down trying to make a run back. There seemed to be a pretty ticky-tack technical foul called on Caitlin Clark. And as I look back and watch, to me it was an unnecessary call. It was a ref that maybe got a little caught up in the moment, but didn't seem like much happening there. It's a dead ball. She throws the ball out of bounds or kind of rolls it out of bounds or whatever, and that happens 20 times in a game, and rarely do you ever see a tech called for that. And so in that moment on that player, that was a huge call. Puts her in a bind for the rest of the game. But honestly, watching the rest of the game play out, I don't know that was going to be the determining factor. I think LSU kind of runs away with it late, and that likely would have been the result. But really, the primary talk since the game is wrapped up has been about something that took place right towards the end of the game, as LSU had basically locked the game up. LSU star player Angel Reese kind of returns the favor of Caitlin Clark a couple rounds earlier and had used the John Cena "You Can't See Me" celebration or whatever, and Angel Reese comes over and does that in Caitlin Clark's face, and then gives a little ring gesture. But and there's been tons of people, and it kind of has blown my mind. Like as this is wrapped up, and we've looked at people's reactions on social media over the last couple of days. A lot of people have been calling into question Angel Reese's character and all these sort of things, and that have nothing to do with the game at all. And coming from me as somebody who played sports before, I didn't think twice about what she did. Sure, maybe it seemed a little cocky, a little brash, but in the moment, the biggest game of your life, you just played an incredible game, about to win a national championship. Anybody who's played sports is not going to be shocked by a little trash talk. I don't think it shocked Caitlin Clark. She just seemed to ignore it and kind of, not even give her any attention. But it really is kind of funny to me that, when Caitlin Clark did it, we want to talk about, oh, she's a savage. She's just got this killer instinct. But now Angel Reese does it, and people want to question who she is. And so I think that was a little uncalled for. I think she's competitive. She's in the moment. She's fiery. Maybe she does have a little attitude or personality. It's not the first time we've seen that in sports. That happens all the time. This is a pretty normal thing. She didn't, she wasn't even calling her out of her name or anything. Literally, she just is celebrating. I get it. It happens. It's part of the game. And so even after the game, Angel Reese, she was saying like she had kind of planned to do that or had that in mind, was waiting for that moment, but also went on to talk about that, hey, Caitlin Clark's an incredible player, respects her for who she, that she's a special talent, but on that night, LSU was the better team. Angel Reese got the best of her, and they come away with a national championship. And so I think it's a little bit of an exaggeration to start jumping to these conclusions and talking about a person's character and who they are as a person based on how they respond or react in the biggest game in their life. And so anyway, so that was kind of the big story, but I really think it was a great performance. I think the biggest thing that I came away with from watching the game was LSU was just a better, deeper team. Caitlin Clark was probably the best player on the court. Still, she's incredibly special, but LSU was just their 1 through 8 were really good. Where Iowa just didn't quite have the depth, and Caitlin Clark didn't quite have the support. She has obviously some talent around her. You don't get to the national championship with just one player, but the depth of LSU, the athleticism of LSU, was just a little bit too much for Iowa on that night. And so that was the women's game, and then last night was the men's national championship between San Diego State and UConn, which very few people, if anyone, had that picked, which I think is just the men's tournament this year was just absolute chaos, man. It was the Final Four was the most odd construction of a Final Four ever, but you end up with the San Diego State team who continue to come back and defy the odds all throughout the tournament. They have several games. Their last 3 games that they win, the Sweet 16 game, the Elite 8 game, and the Final Four game, they come from behind, win by 1. It's a win on a buzzer beater in the Final Four to get to the national championship. So they just keep scratching and clawing and getting there. And on the other side, you have the opposite. This UConn team who has been absolutely dominant through the tournament. It's crazy to think about that this is a 4 seed, which they're not your typical 4 seed. This team started off the year really hot. It was a team that people were talking about as a national championship contender, and then they just went through a terrible little lull in the middle of the season, hit some bumps in the road, had some adversity, but then kind of pick up pace again towards the end of the year, and even had several big-time analysts picking them to win the national title coming in the tournament. So I don't think that's too terrible of a shock, but the dominant performance, the way they won was unique, was special, and especially coming from a 4 seed to go and win every single game by double digits. Really, the tightest game they play is the national championship, and it really wasn't all that close. San Diego State tries to make a late run in the second half, cuts it down to single digits, but really just never had the firepower to hang on to that or to really take control of the game. And this UConn team was special, and that's a team that when you watch them, that's got several guys that are going to be some legitimate NBA players. And so for what turned out, what was a pretty wild tournament, lots of upsets, lots of things going on, when you really look at UConn's run, it was dominant from start to finish, and they were clearly the best team in the tournament this year. It was a tough one for me. My Texas Longhorns make a really great run and get to the Elite 8 for the first time since 2008, but below a 13-point second-half lead to Miami team, which is really frustrating to me because, when looking at what was left in the tournament, Texas, I think, was the one team that really could compete with UConn, at least on our best night. And so it's frustrating not to get to see that matchup in the Final Four, but Texas blows that lead, wastes it. But ultimately, it was a good year, especially all the adversity that Texas had to face this year. Losing Chris Beard, their head coach, to some domestic violence issues, and so him having a moral failure that causes him to be fired, removed from that position, which is always tough on any team, really, when your coach gets fired, but also even maybe more so on a college team because you got young adults that are needing guidance and leadership, and to have someone who was supposed to be leading you fail in such a significant way and have to be removed is always difficult. But Rodney Terry stepped up and really became a leader for this team, and I think even more so than just the X's and O's side of coaching, he was just rallied these guys together, gave them confidence, and helped them play together as a team to achieve something they haven't in a long time, 15 years now since they had been to the Elite Eight. And it's frustrating because if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year that we'd make it to the Elite Eight, I'd have probably been happy. But once you get there, you start smelling a national championship and think that maybe they can get there. And so it's a hard one to swallow when they lose, especially in the way they lost, to be so dominant for the first 30 minutes of a game and then just to waste it all in the last 10 is pretty brutal. But still going to be a talented team, likely coming back next year. But all that to say, this UConn team was special, made a really, really nice run, dominant from start to finish, and well-deserved national champions. But then also, I just wanted to kind of talk about, too, a couple of things. For one, wanted to encourage you, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the Sports News Relay YouTube channel. Turn on that bell notification at the bottom as well, because we've got some new content that we're coming up. I'm going to try to get more regular and posting things at least once a week, just kind of giving some quick updates or thoughts and maybe reflections. And even as we kind of find ourselves in between some of the peaks of sports seasons, maybe a few deep dives on some different players and other aspects, things that I'd love to be able to share with y'all. But then also, we're looking to kind of start a new interview series and be able to maybe have some coaches come on and be able to hear their story and a little bit of how they got into what they're doing and share a little bit about that. And so make sure to subscribe, turn on that notification so you get a notification when the next video drops. And so share it with your friends, man. We're so excited about some of the things coming up. But thanks for joining us today, man. We'll look forward to talking to you next time.
Hey, if you've enjoyed watching this, make sure to check out Radio Faith's other podcast, Saved and Tatted, hosted by Charles. You don't want to miss it. Go subscribe today. Saved and Tatted Show on YouTube. If I could say the word YouTube one time.
Oh, we get for drinking. Go check Charles Saved.
Yes. I've gotten more used to it now because of stuff with the church. But it's dumb. Like, I could say it 100 times, like, if I'm not trying to say it scripted, like, in front of a camera, but then it's like,
I'll be in my car. Hurry, we get you a piece. He looked at the kolaches and he was like, do I want to eat another kolache or do I want to wait till the pizza's done?